morning. Happy Monday. Welcome to the first recording of Monday Mornings with Margie. Let me introduce myself. My name is Margie Pierce, and I am the Director of Operations at Achieve TMS East. We are an organization that helps to treat people with depression and OCD. However, I'm not here per se in that role. Let me tell you a little bit about myself in other ways. So I am a mother of two. I am a spouse. I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am an aunt. I am a sports coach. And I am a person. And what I'm hoping we can do each week with this podcast is to connect with each other. Because I, like you, need connection. We are all hardwired for relationships and human connection, both emotionally and physically. And I'm hoping that we can learn together, connect, bring different people on to the podcast that can teach us, and just find, 10, 15 minutes each week that we can be reflective of maybe a different topic each week. I am not seeing myself per se as the teacher. I always understand that I am a learner in this process. And so some of the things I'm sharing with you, I am still working on myself. So today, what I wanted to focus on was everything going on right now in the country, in the world with COVID-19, which is obviously very scary. And then with that, social isolation or social distancing. And that also is really difficult. We've all been sort of taken out of our normal daily routines of what we do outside of our house and who we spend large portions of our day with in some cases, for some of us. So today I was hoping to talk a little bit about some things that I'm trying to implement in my own life, and also just suggestions that may be helpful to others. So one of the first things I wanted to talk a little bit about is staying connected, which is part of the reason why we want to do this podcast, is that connection is so important during these times, whether it's connection with your family or friends or roommates that you're living with, or maybe your animals or pets that you're living with. It's important to stay engaged, connected, talking, maybe spending time in the same room, even if you're both reading. It's also important to stay connected with the outside world if you are able to. And for instance, there are video conferencing platforms like Zoom or FaceTime in which you can actually see people. Or it's just about picking up the phone and calling someone and checking in. So those are some things that I've been implementing in my life during this time. And we clearly have more time to actually focus on that. And I think it's ultimately a good thing. The second suggestion that I have is to keep a routine. It's really easy when you don't have to get up and go somewhere, whether it's a job or to bring your child to daycare or some other meeting that you have to go to. When all that's sort of shut down and you're primarily living in your home, it's easy to kind of start to not do the typical things we always do. I would suggest otherwise. It's important that you keep some sort of schedule and routine to each of your days. It's obviously going to be somewhat different if you're not leaving to go to work, let's say, for an example, but having some structure to when you're doing everything that you would normally do, eating habits, making sure you're eating, at the normal times you normally would eat, and, staying focused on things that nourish you during this time. The next suggestion I have would be physical activity. Now, I, like many of you, am hot and cold with exercise. I'd like to say that I'm great at it, but I am not. So what I'd say is it's not so much just about exercise per se, it's just about physical movement. So making sure you're getting up and moving around your house. You could walk or jog in place. You could get on the floor, do a little yoga, or just stretch the muscles that are stiff from sitting. If you can get a little bit of exercise where you're getting your heart rate up, or you're lifting weights, or you don't even have to have weights. You could lift, soup cans, bag of potatoes. I think just making sure you have physical activity incorporated into your day is really key. And it really is good for your mood as well. If you have providers, if you see a therapist, if you see a psychiatrist, if you see a primary care doctor or any other kind of specialist on a regular basis, continue to see them. This isn't the time to back away from support from your medical providers or psych providers. Telehealth is implemented. People can call you. They can do video conferencing appointments with you. Now more than ever, you want to stay connected with the people who are supportive of both your psychological health and your physical health. So keep that on the top of your priority list. Next, self-care. And this is thrown around a lot, self-care. My focus with this is really on, taking care of, your ADLs, making sure you're getting up and you're showering and you're brushing your teeth and you're combing your hair and you're changing your clothes and you're putting on clean clothes. All the things that sort of make you feel good and better, even though there may be days where you could get away with not doing it because maybe you're not going to see anyone that day. It's still really good to stay on top of those things and make it a focus for you during this time, and obviously all the time. Along with that is good sleep hygiene. During times like this, some people who get more stressed and anxious may start to notice they're having more trouble sleeping. And on the other hand, there may be people who are sort of trying to numb out and avoid how they're feeling, and they want to sleep more and sleep part of their day away. What I would suggest is trying to keep a normal sleep regimen. And, for you people who maybe are more anxious at bedtime, make sure you don't have your TV on, make sure you're not looking at your phone, anything that's going to get you thinking. If there's a book or some relaxing music you can play, maybe something like that. But you want to try to start to kind of dampen things down for you. And if you're somebody who's feeling like you want to sleep all the time, set an alarm, get yourself up in the morning. And if you want to take an hour nap in the afternoon, there's nothing wrong with taking an hour nap, but you really want to keep on a good sleep schedule. Next. Connecting with nature. Now, I'm not the outdoorsy type. That's not my, on the top of my list of things to do. However, I will say that if you think about how you feel when you're at the ocean, or by a lake, or walking in the woods, or hiking, or just sitting outside in your backyard when it's sunny out, think about how good you generally feel when you're doing that kind of thing. There is something about nature that is good for our soul. And I think it gives us a sense of peace and groundedness. And I think right now, more than anything, we all need to feel as grounded as possible. So I would suggest finding ways of connecting with nature. You could read a book under a tree. It doesn't have to be, a big excursion. It can be different ways of connecting with nature. This is one I really like. It would be on one of the top of my list is music, using music right now. Dancing, listening to music, ideally listening to upbeat music, not something that's going to make you feel worse. Not listening to that song that reminds you of an ex and makes you, teary listening to it. You want to listen to music that feels good, good to you emotionally. And, if you feel like it, dance. I love dancing, and I think it's also another way of moving. And it's okay to do that during this time. Another thing sort of added in with that is laughing. And I know right now, sometimes it can feel like we shouldn't be laughing. We shouldn't feel any kind of joy because we're in this, terrible time in this country and world. And there are people who are sick, and there are people who are dying. At the same time, we also have to focus in on ourselves and getting through each day. And you not laughing or experiencing joy in your life does not change the outcome for other people who are struggling. It does help you, though. So whether it's, talking to a friend that makes you laugh, watching a comedian on TV, watching a funny movie, anything that can bring a smile, because laughing and smiling actually is good for your brain and releases chemicals and that are feel-good chemicals. So right now, I think we can all use that. My final two suggestions are, I think, important in this time. So one has to do with others and one has to do with us individually. So I'll start with the one for us individually. Often in our life, because we're busy or preoccupied with other things, there are tasks, there are projects, there are activities that we put aside and we wish we could get to it and we never get to it. And I'm not talking about, things that are necessarily stressful. They could be something that you really enjoy doing, but you never feel like you have the time to do it. Now is a time where we are all, in our houses, where you could maybe accomplish some of these tasks. Maybe you want to wash all your windows. Well, you have a lot of time to wash your windows. You could wash one window a day. Maybe, you wanted to work on a art project. You wanted to paint something and you just never take the time to paint. For me, I like putting picture albums together and being creative in that way. So that's one of the things I'm going to try to make the time to do during this time for myself, because often I feel like I don't have that time to do it. So it could be a more practical task or project that just getting it done and over with will make you feel better. Or it could be something you just really like to do and you don't feel like you often have the time to do it, or do it to the extent that you want to do it. Maybe it's reading, some good books that you've been wanting to read and you have, piled up next to your bed like I do. And, this is a time when you could take the opportunity to, sit and read and enjoy that. Maybe it's finishing puzzles. It could be anything. whatever it is for you, I think now is a time where there's sort of no excuses to not doing things that are going to ultimately make you feel better. The other thing that I think is equally as important to my last suggestion is doing something nice for someone else. So one of the things I think that's hard about the time we're in is that we all feel sort of helpless and powerless over the situation. And that can negatively affect our mood, or make us anxious, or make us worried. And one thing that we do have control over is reaching out to someone or doing something for someone else that both makes them feel better and in return makes us feel better. My next segment is going to be on kindness. And I think that kind of comes in with what I'm talking about. You know, we're seeing lots of kind acts all over the world, all over this country right now. And kindness makes you feel better, makes you feel good. Doing something kind for someone else is a good thing. And, you know, a lot of people associate that with money. I have to give money. And it doesn't have to be something that's related, it has monetary value. It might be, you know, writing a note, either to someone you know who's struggling, or a friend you haven't connected with in a while and you just want them to know how much you love and care about them. It could be, you know, going next door to your neighbor's house, keeping social distancing, but letting them know, like giving them your phone number and saying, you know, if you need something, call me and I'll do the best I can to help. Or if you run out of toilet paper, give me a holler. So, you know, I think that it's a nice thing, and it's good for the person receiving, but it's also good for the person that is giving in those situations. So think about that. I'm sure many of you are already doing things for other people, and so this isn't, you know, anything new. But I just wanted to emphasize that because I do think this is a time right now where we all need to feel connected with one another in kind and gentle ways. I think it's really important. So those are my suggestions right now. I am working on most of them myself. I have a lot of work to do myself on these, but I am not just preaching. I am working on it and trying to implement it into my life every day during this time. So I want to thank you all for being part of my first ever podcast. And I hope that we will be able to connect weekly on Monday mornings. So have your coffee ready and relax and come in and connect and listen with me on Monday mornings. Take care and be well.